Okay, so let's unpack this. Have you ever, like, pictured someone walking into a coffee shop
Uh,
and saying, completely seriously, "Greetings. May I kindly request a single cup of your finest hot beverage?"
oh, wow, no. Or maybe at the grocery store asking for 1 unit of the elongated yellow fruit.
Exactly. Apparently, someone actually tried speaking like their English textbook in, real life.
No way. How did that go?
Well, picture the scene. The cafe, the supermarket, trying to pay for parking, even asking a kid on a scooter for directions using this super formal
Oh
language.
my goodness.
The reactions, just total bewilderment, polite confusion, mostly. It just sounds so funny, so different from how we actually talk,
It
really.
really does, and it highlights this fundamental gap, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
we spend years learning English, focusing on grammar, vocab,
Right.
and then you get into a real conversation and it feels like something's missing. Like, why does the English we learn sometimes sound so, I don't know, stiff, out of place?
Exactly. And that's really what we're diving into today. Let's forget perfect grammar for just a second.
Okay.
We're talking about the English they didn't teach us in school. If you've ever felt that real spoken English has this kind of secret code.
Mm-hmm. Like a rhythm or a vibe.
Yeah, exactly. A
That.
rhythm, a tone, a vibe that you haven't quite cracked even after all that studying. Well, you're definitely not alone.
Right.
We're going to try and explore some of those key things that often just get missed in, traditional classes.
It really makes you wonder what's causing that disconnect and the source we're looking at for this.
Right, the YouTube video.
Yeah, from Speak English with Class. It's called English Podcast for Learning English. Watch this to learn real English, English Leap Podcast. It offers some really good insights, I think.
It does.
They kind of touch on this idea that school gives you the framework, the structure.
But real life adds the melody, the music.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, okay, let's start with the most obvious place this difference shows up, the actual sentences we use.
Mhm.
The video points out how textbook English can just sound really robotic
Mm-hmm.
in a normal chat.
Definitely. Think about a phrase like, maybe you learned, I am residing in this locality for professional purposes.
Oh, gosh. Yes,
Yeah.
perfectly dramatical, right?
Totally correct. But can you imagine actually saying that to someone you just met?
No, it sounds incredibly stiff. So unnatural.
Why use all those formal words when, something simple works?
Right. Like the video suggests, why not just say, I live here for work?
Exactly. It's not about being wrong grammatically.
Yeah.
It's about speaking in a way that, well, connects with people. It feels like we were trained to write formal essays, maybe.
Yeah. Not have coffee with a friend. Real fluency, it seems, is about being understood, connecting,
Mm.
not just being technically perfect.
And that brings up an interesting thought, doesn't it? What's the goal of language? Is it just pure information transfer?
Or is it more?
Or is it also about building rapport, fitting in socially? The source suggests that maybe unnecessary formality can actually create a bit of distance.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost more work for the listener, too, right?
Yeah,
To process overly complicated sentences.
could be. And the video had some pretty practical advice there.
Oh, yeah.
Just, pay attention to how people actually talk. Like in TV shows, vlogs.
Right. Absorb that natural flow.
Yeah.
Those everyday phrases you just don't find in chapter 5 of the textbook.
Exactly. Which kind of leads us nicely into another huge part of it, tone.
Ah, yes. Tone. So important.
Absolutely. This is where so much of the real meaning gets conveyed, isn't it?
Totally. You can say the exact same word,
Mm-hmm.
but depending on how you say it, the meaning can completely flip.
The video used the example of thanks, right?
Yeah. You can say thanks and mean genuine gratitude. Or,
Or total sarcasm.
right, in school, thanks was just, a polite word. That was it. We didn't really learn that how we say it as this whole other layer emotionally.
It's like the emotional color of the language.
Yeah.
Tone signals if you're being sincere or maybe doubtful, enthusiastic, annoyed.
All of that. Think about texting, too. How a flat, I understand, can feel really dismissive.
Oh, yeah. Whereas the same words, spoken with a bit of warmth, maybe a smile in your voice.
Totally different feeling.
Rear.
Reassuring.
Yeah.
That story in the video about the text message versus the voice note, that really hit home for me.
Yeah, it showed the difference so clearly. Text just loses so much sometimes.
It really does. Okay, so we've got sentence structure, we've got tone. What about how we react in conversations? The video mentioned this too.
Yeah, this is maybe a bit more subtle, but it makes a huge difference in sounding natural.
How so?
Well, textbooks often give you these very direct, almost formulaic responses like, The question, do you like movies?
Okay. Textbook answer.
Probably something like, yes, I do.
Which is
Yeah.
fine. Technically correct.
Correct, but a bit flat, maybe. Who actually talks like that all the time?
Right. Real people react, don't they? They show
Yeah.
some personality.
Exactly. They might say, yeah, definitely. Or, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
Or even just a casual, depends what kind of movie. Or depends what's playing.
Right. Those kinds of reactions, they keep the conversation moving. They show you're engaged, you're interested.
Yeah.
You're not just, reciting lines from memory.
Yeah, you sound like a real person.
Precisely. Reactions signal you're actively listening, participating, not just waiting for your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And like the video pointed out, learning some common reactions can really boost how fluent people think you are. Something like, no way, or wow, that's wild, when someone tells you something surprising.
Feels so much more natural than just saying, I am surprised.
Exactly. Much more engaging.
Okay, now here's one that's kind of funny. Something we were probably told not to do in school.
Uh-oh. What's that?
Using fillers.
Yeah.
The little fills, like cells.
The dreaded fillers.
But the video makes a really interesting point about them, doesn't it?
It really does. It basically says, hey, native speakers, they use fillers all the time.
Right. Try to imagine someone having a conversation, like totally fluid, zero pauses, no little connecting words.
It would sound weird, artificial, almost robotic, maybe?
Totally.
Yeah.
That GPS voice analogy they used was perfect. It's clear, sure, but it doesn't sound human.
Fillers aren't necessarily mistakes, are they? They're actually a natural part of processing thoughts into speech.
We need that split second to think, figure out what we're saying next.
And those little sounds, they give us that space. It's fascinating because these little imperfections, they actually contribute to the natural rhythm of speech. They show you're thinking in real time, not just reading a script in your head.
So the video's message there is pretty reassuring, I think.
Yeah.
Those occasional pauses, the they're normal. Don't stress about eliminating every single one.
Absolutely. Aiming for naturalness is much better than aiming for some kind of unnatural perfection.
Good point. And speaking of naturalness, let's talk about context. This is huge.
Oh, definitely. Context is everything.
Because school teaches us the dictionary definition.
Right.
And how to make a sentence grammatically.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't always teach us when and where it's actually okay to use certain words or phrases.
That's such a key point. The video had that great example of how do you do.
Right. Technically correct as a greeting.
Very formal.
But if you used it at a casual party,
you'd probably get some pretty strange looks. It just doesn't fit that context. It belongs somewhere much more formal.
Totally. Or like learning, it's a pleasure to meet you. Perfect for a job interview, right? Or meeting someone important.
Yeah.
But saying it when you're introduced to your friend's buddy at a barbecue.
Yeah. Sounds a bit much. Overly formal.
Real English is so much about understanding the social situation, isn't it? Who you're talking to, what the vibe is.
And adjusting your language. You wouldn't talk to your boss the same way you talk to your best friend, usually.
Hopefully not. It's like this social intelligence that's woven into language.
It really is. It's not just knowing the words, it's knowing the unwritten rules of how to use them.
That funny story in the video about the person saying, it's been a while since we last interacted.
Oh, yeah. To a classmate.
Yeah. And the classmate was like, did you just say interacted?
It just sounds so jarring in that casual context, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, next up. Something I know I definitely found tricky when learning languages. Idioms and expressions.
Ah, yes. The bane of many learners' existence.
Textbooks often just dust. They either skip them or they explain them so literally that you're still confused.
Right. The video really hit the nail on the head there. I remember learning something like break a leg.
Yeah. Means good luck.
Right, but the textbook explanation might make it sound like some weird riddle. You get the definition, maybe.
But you have zero idea how or when you'd actually say that to someone. It remains this abstract thing.
Exactly. So what happens? We just end up avoiding them, sticking to the safe, literal stuff.
Meanwhile, native speakers are tossing around phrases like I'm beat or that's a red flag constantly.
And if you haven't learned them in context, you're left scratching your head trying to figure it out.
It's vital to get that idioms add so much color, richness to the language, right?
Definitely. English without them can sound a bit bland, maybe a bit too direct sometimes.
And the video points out traditional education often just doesn't give these common everyday expressions enough airtime.
Which is a shame because they make your English sound so much more authentic, more alive. That story about learning I'm down from a YouTuber.
Oh, right. Compared to the formal I am willing to attend the event.
Yeah, can you imagine saying that to a friend asking if you want a great pizza? I am willing to attend the pizza event.
Never, yeah. I'm down is just so much more natural, effortless.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've hit sentence structure, tone, reactions, fillers, context, idioms. What about just keeping the conversation going? The flow.
Ah, yeah. Another skill that's crucial but often invisible, isn't it?
Totally untaught in school, mostly. How do you actually keep a conversation alive? How do you smoothly change topics without it feeling super awkward?
Or what do you do in those natural pauses, those moments of silence?
Right. School gave us those super stilted dialogues, remember? Hey, hello, how are you?
B, I am fine, thank you. And you? Oh, yes.
But real conversations are messy. People interrupt. They jump between ideas. They trail off.
No one ever says, now let us transition to the topic of weekend plans.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's more like this subtle dance, isn't it?
It is. It's not just about swapping information. It's about connecting, keeping the interaction engaging.
And the video mentioned those little transition phrases, didn't it? Like, oh, by the way, or speaking of that.
Yeah. Those seemingly small phrases are actually like secret keys. They unlock a smoother conversational flow. They let you navigate turns and topic shifts much more naturally.
They really do. Once you start noticing and using those, you feel less like you're just answering questions.
And more like you're actually in the conversation, participating in a real back and forth.
And part of any real back and forth
Yeah.
involves making mistakes sometimes.
Absolutely. And this is another area where that pressure for perfection from school can actually hold you back. Well, we get so scared of making a mistake, using the wrong grammar, sounding silly,
I've definitely felt that.
that it can actually stop us from speaking freely at all. The video touched on that fear.
But then you listen closely and you realize, hey, native English speakers, they mess up too.
All the time. They stumble over words, maybe use the wrong tense here and there, change their mind mid-sentence.
And usually, it's no big deal. The conversation just carries on.
Exactly. The key thing to remember is that fluency isn't about reaching some impossible state of grammatical perfection.
Right.
It's more about being comfortable enough to keep going, to communicate, even when you slip up.
That anecdote in the video, the self-deprecating one about accidentally saying, I'm boring, instead of I'm bored.
That was a good one. Perfect example. Mistakes happen. Sometimes they're funny. You correct yourself, or maybe you don't even need to, and you just move on.
A small natural error is way less disruptive than a perfectly formed sentence that took you 30 seconds of painful silence to construct.
Well put. Okay, final point, and this one's huge, and the video rightly spends time on it. Cultural English.
Ah, yes. This might be the biggest piece of the puzzle that formal education often just misses completely.
The video is so spot on here. We learn the dictionary meanings, right?
Yep. Word definition.
But we don't always learn how things like sarcasm, humor, cultural references, how they totally flip the meaning of those very same words.
Exactly. Someone says, oh, great, but the way they say it.
Tells you they're actually really annoyed or frustrated.
Right. Or online, someone types, I'm dead after a joke.
Means that was hilarious, not,
Not literal death, no. And think about the subtle stuff, too. Like, that's interesting.
Yes. Can sometimes be a very polite way to say, I don't really agree, or I'm a bit skeptical.
Learning English without understanding those cultural layers, it's like that analogy the video used, having a map but no compass.
Yeah, that was perfect. You know the roads, the words, the grammar, but you don't know how to navigate the actual social landscape. You don't have that sense of direction.
So just to kind of wrap things up quickly, we've looked at quite a few things. The big difference between textbook and real-world English.
The power of tone, those natural reactions instead of just responses.
The fact that fillers like and are actually normal.
The absolute importance of context, when and where to say things.
The vibrancy that idioms and expressions add.
That often untaught skill of just keeping a conversation flowing.
Accepting that mistakes happen, even for native speakers.
And finally, that huge, crucial layer of cultural understanding.
So bringing this back to you, the listener, maybe think about how these points connect with your own journey learning English.
Yeah, have you felt that gap between the classroom rules and the messy reality of conversation?
And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. How much of communication, really in any language, happens beyond the actual words? How much relies on these subtle real-world things? The tone, the context, the shared understanding. Maybe pay a bit more attention to those unspoken bits in your next English interactions.
Yeah, it might just unlock a whole new level of understanding.